What's up, everyone? You're listening to the RAS Project. My name is Ivan Temelkov, and I'm your host. On this podcast, we discuss entrepreneurship, personal development, family, tech, and marketing. And as always, it's 100% real, raw, and unfiltered. So I'm back with a solo session. I haven't done a solo session in quite a while. I hope you've enjoyed all the recent guests that have been on the show. And in fact, there's more guests coming on the show very, very soon. But I wanted to kind of break up the monotony of consequential guests and really talk about something that, you know, I haven't really talked about in a long time on the show. And I want to kind of take a turn towards social media, talk a little bit about social media, because I gotta tell you guys, I don't know about you, but I am literally irritated at all the bullshit that is happening in the social media space right now, and I wanted to put some context around that. So in this episode, we're gonna talk about how to blow up your social media feeds. That's right, this is no fucking magic or anything, but what I'm about to share with you are things that have helped me personally blow up my social media feeds, build more relationships, generate more opportunities, and more business opportunities, more revenue potential. So what I'm about to tell you, I hope you're taking some notes, because this is going to be straight 100% fucking fire proven tactics that you can employ on any social media channel, okay? And it doesn't matter what it is, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, you know, you can employ these tactics specifically. So I'm going to start out by talking about attention. You have to understand that in today's day and society, attention is key. Attention is currency. You have to be out there in the social media space, but you also don't want to come across like an attention fucking whore. There's a lot of people out there that are doing just that. They're not creating the right type of attention. And it's important for you to understand that when you're creating attention, that it's with purpose. It's not just, hey, look at me, here's a picture with not my Lambo, one that I saw down the street, and decided to take a picture with it and then post it on Instagram. That's the fucking bullshit that I'm talking about. That's not the right attention that you want to be creating. And this is really, really important, because too many people are screwing this up nowadays. So the first thing is, attention is currency. You need to create attention, but you also don't want to come across like an attention whore where you're just thriving for any kind of attention. Now, the second thing is, you need to stop worrying about vanity metrics like likes and comments. Seriously, it's 2020. Please understand that the amount of likes and the amount of comments do not define you as a person, as an entrepreneur. I know plenty of people who aren't even on social media that are also making a ridiculous amount of money because they have figured out a process. And there's a lot of people, again, let me backtrack for a second. Now, those people need to be on social media. They're realizing that. But what I'm specifically talking about here is the fact that too many people are hung up on vanity metrics like likes and comments. I gotta tell you, there's a lot of my posts out there that don't get crazy amounts of likes or comments. But what I do get is a lot of attention. A lot of people who will message me and say, you know what, that video had huge merit. It really spoke to me, but I didn't feel like I should comment to it because I did not want to draw attention to myself. You know, my initial response is, what the fuck? What do you mean not draw attention to yourself? I mean, if you found value in the context of a post, why not contribute to it? And there's a lot of people out there. I've talked about in the past the bystanders, the onlookers. And there's a lot of those in social media, because social media is so cluttered and so saturated that a lot of people just don't feel like they have the need to contribute. So stop worrying about vanity metrics like and comments. Focus on the contextual value of your content. Don't just push out any content out there, but focus on the actual substance or whatever it is the fuck you're talking about. Make sure that you know a lot about the subject matter. Make sure you can contribute to it valiantly. Because this is the problem with a lot of people on social media, that they're just literally rambling like a broken fucking megaphone, and it's frustrating as fuck. In fact, I'm starting to unfollow so many people across all social networks because they have no contextual value in their content. That is what's going to differentiate you from everyone else. In part, is the contextual value that you share on your social media channels. Develop consistency with your posts. Guys, you have to understand that consistency is trust. And what I'm talking about is like clockwork, like fucking clockwork. Example, for instance, on Instagram, you should be posting 3 times per day. 9 a.m., your local time, 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Sometimes that'll vary, like on Sundays. You know, it'll be 12 p.m., 3 p.m., and maybe 6 p.m. And where you determine the posting times is based on your Instagram insights. So if you look at your Instagram insights, you'll be able to see under the audience section by day when you're having the most amount of engagement, segmented by hour. Now, you need to be posting consistency, because in doing so, it builds trust with people. If people can establish that trust, if they can consume that trust, then they'll be willing to pay you money to do something. It's very basic. It's like building relationships. This is in essence what posting consistency has to do with. Focus on building relationships with people and a community around you. I mean, this is very self-explanatory, but there's so many people out there that don't understand that social media is about building relationships. First and foremost, always and forever. Get to know the people that you would want to do business with eventually. What are their interests? You know, do they have a family? Do they have kids? You know, what do they do for a hobby? Like, that's the point behind social media, is building those relationships and building a community around you that will reciprocate eventually, because you helped that community in some form or fashion. You took interest in getting to know those people. Don't contradict yourself. I gotta tell you, there's so many people, even so-called influencers, that are contradicting themselves on social media. They said one thing one day and the next they're talking about something completely different. I mean, honestly, you gotta have the same tune every day. Persistency in your methodologies is really important. Honestly, this sickens me to my stomach, because I see so many people who contradict themselves on social media for the sake of being attention fucking whores. And that's the wrong way to go about it. It's only a matter of time before people pick up on your bullshit. Be responsive and attentive. You have to understand that urgency is essential in this real-time world. What am I talking about, responsive and attentive? For instance, I do a lot of messenger conversations, right? I communicate with a lot of people on Messenger, on Facebook. I communicate with a lot of people in the DMs, on Instagram specifically, and these days also on LinkedIn. So you have to understand that response is key, because in this real-time world, people don't have an hour or a day to wait. Honestly, the biggest thing that frustrates me is when someone messages me wanting to have a discussion with me about something, and after like the first or second sentence, they go completely AWOL. Like, understand that you have to be responsive and attentive, specifically to the people who show interest in you. And in the same way that you communicate with others. It's a two-way road. Understand that a lot of what you've heard about social media is a complete fucking lie. Honestly, a lot of the bullshit that's on social media that people talk about, experts, shit that you read on the internet, is not true. It's prefabricated crap. The basics behind social media has to do with relationship building. Getting to know people as if you would in real life. You know, I think social networks like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn have really scrutinized this, and this is where the organic reach has completely tanked, because they have become more concerned about fattening their pockets and monetizing. You know, Facebook has over 2 billion users, so figuring out how to monetize that audience as opposed to retaining the ethics behind it. I mean, this has been a problematic thing for years and years and years. Because, for instance, Facebook has created a dopamine that's irresistible for people who flock to Facebook. That's in part what has helped Facebook grow. And I'm just talking about one network in itself. I just heard that LinkedIn, for example, just hit 600 million users, I believe, or something along those lines. So that's a network that, you know, has huge amount of untapped potential to be able to leverage as well. But, you know, sooner or later, they're going to try to monetize that audience as much as they can. And I get that from a business sense. Don't get me wrong. I get that. When you have a large audience, you want to find ways how to monetize it. But let's not forget about the ethics of social media. And that's precisely why I wanted to emphasize on the fact that a lot of what you probably heard about social media is bullshit. So that's really all that I wanted to jam about on this episode. I've been receiving a lot of good feedback, reviews on iTunes specifically. I'm very thankful to you guys. Those of you that are regular listeners, new listeners also to the podcast, that you take time out of your day to listen to this podcast. It means the world to me. And with that being said, I have one favor to ask from you. If you feel that I've given you some value in this podcast, some perspective, or helped you make a change in your personal life or your business, I would greatly appreciate it if you share this podcast with someone else. I'm not selling you anything or forcing you to buy shit that you don't want, like many other people do on podcasts. I'm simply asking you to share this podcast with other entrepreneurs or anyone who wants to make a change in their life and business. And if you enjoyed the podcast and you keep coming back, it would mean the world to me if you shared a review on iTunes. It will help others, other like-minded folks, know about the nature of content and value that I share on this podcast and give them a reason to listen. And last but not least, before I forget, if you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, I'm always looking for sponsors to sponsor this podcast. Please email me at ivan@razorsharpdigital.com, or you can also message me on Messenger, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. So pretty much any social network out there. I want to thank you all so much, the audience on YouTube, Facebook Watch, all of you that listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and attention. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.